welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. The government of Guyana, with the support of the Inter-American Development Bank, is working to increase effectiveness in the delivery of primary education. It intends to do this by focusing on accelerated learning and skills development, technology integration into teaching and learning, implementing an education management information system, and embarking on the construction of 4 primary schools, as well as critical infrastructure improvements to 13 others. This is expected to be accomplished through a project currently being developed by the Ministry of Education and the Education Social Sector Unit of the IDB. The project is called Transforming Guyana's Education Sector. Upon completion, the initiative is expected to ensure that the country has the required human capital to manage and drive economic growth and diversification. The program is being implemented through 2 operations over a period of 8 years, with each operation expected to have an implementation period of 4 years. In October 2021, the Switzerland authorities ordered 3 subsidiaries of Dutch oil services company SBM to pay a $7 million fine for failing to prevent bribery to government officials in West African countries in order to secure lucrative contracts. SBM Offshore is a company that has already established its presence in Guyana. In fact, SBM is the company designing the floating production, storage and offloading vessels for ExxonMobil's projects in Guyana. The Switzerland office of the Attorney General had found that SBM from 2006 to the start of 2012 had paid more than $22 million in bribes to public officials in countries like Angola, Equatorial Guinea and Nigeria. Notably, the SBM subsidiaries paid principally in Angola, Equatorial Guinea, and to a lesser extent in Nigeria. The monies were paid through intermediaries under the cover of sham contracts. Meanwhile, Guyana's High Commissioner to India, Charandas Prasad, was last year August recorded on camera verbally abusing a woman in India. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here said that the matter is closed as the allegations have not been substantiated. The main opposition parties on Monday flayed Guyana's High Commissioner to India, Charandas Prasad, for his quote-unquote vile attack on the woman and called on the Irfanali administration to immediately recall the envoy to sack him. Earlier today, in a DPI release, President Ali said that he spoke with Mr. Prasad on the matter. He asserted that, notwithstanding the claims of Prasad, he has removed him as Guyana's High Commissioner to India. And the ease of doing business locally and reducing red tape will soon become a reality as the Ministry of Housing and Water's Central Housing and Planning Authority is moving the process along for the implementation of an automated single-window system for planning and building permissions. In delivering the keynote address on the occasion, Minister of Housing and Water, Susan Rodriguez, noted that the reform is necessary for respecting legislative amendments and streamlining procedures so that processing time for planning and building permits is reduced as Guyana is now poised for economic takeoff. The minister reiterated the need for clear timelines and enhancement of accountability and transparency, noting that the current system is primarily paper-based. In other news, a 28-year-old minor on Tuesday was found guilty of raping an underage girl on October 24, 2020 on the Essequibo Coast, Region 2. The convicted rapist, Raphael Dube, made his court appearance at the Saudi High Court before Judge Joanne Barlow. According to reports, the suspect and victim are known to each other. It was alleged that on the night of October 24, 2020, Dube showed up at a friend's home and at the friend's home where the girl was staying. She reportedly opened the door and let him in. He then forced himself on the girl while the rest of the family was sound asleep. Dube will be sentenced on November 15th. And just before we head to a short break, let's tell you that 8 out of the 12 bidders that responded to the invitation for pre-qualification for the construction of a new hospitality training institute are Trinidad and Tobago owned companies. The bids, which opened at the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board office yesterday, saw the 8 Trinidadian firms, 3 local firms and 1 Chinese-owned company all applying for the construction of the $2.8 billion Hospitality and Tourism Training Institute project. The time has now moved on to 12 hours 13 in Guyana. We'll take a short break and return with your news.
This is GHK Lal inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues. Immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Guyana, join me on the Glenn Lal Show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:20 p.m. and a rebroadcast at 11 a.m. The Glenn Lal Show only on Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 and 99.5 FM.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. The government and opposition stakeholders are at loggerheads over the newly proposed amendments to Guyana's main elections laws. Following the March 2020 general and regional elections fiasco, the PPPC government has embarked on a process of amending the Representation of the People Act, which is Guyana's main electoral law. There are also proposed amendments for the National Registration Act and other components of the electoral law. Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs Anil Nandlal on Tuesday addressed a national stakeholder consultation where he pointed out, among other things, that the proposed amendments would see Regions 3, 4 and 6 being subdivided to facilitate easier tabulation of votes. Meanwhile, the Board of Inquiry that investigated the Demerara Harbour Bridge accident has found that the private river pilot, 66-year-old Kenneth Court, had relied on his own judgment rather than the oil tanker's navigation equipment. Court was the man contracted to transit the Panamanian-flagged vessel MV Tradewind's Passion through the Demerara Harbour Bridge on October 8. The oil tanker, loaded with fuel for Guyana, crashed into the bridge close to 2 hours that day. A Demerara Harbour Bridge staffer, Andy Duke, was left with a broken leg, and the bridge was left inoperable for almost 72 hours. Some $1 billion was reportedly spent to repair the damage and make the bridge operable again. Meanwhile, a barber and a farmer were on Tuesday charged after it was alleged that they stole millions in cash and jewelry from their employer's home at Coghlan Dam, West Bank, Demerara. The men, 20-year-old Kaieteur Radio and 46-year-old Hans Raj Madhu, made their court appearance at the Vredenhoek Magistrates Court before Magistrate Faith Magusti. Radio and Madhu, respectively, are accused of breaking into a businessman's home on Thursday last. They allegedly stole $10 million in cash and some $3.4 million worth of gold jewelry. Meanwhile, 6 persons are now homeless after a fire on Monday ravaged through their home at Palmyra Village, Kanji Berbice. 52-year-old Budnarayan Danraj is estimating over $6 million in losses following the blaze that completely destroyed the house he lived in with his wife and 4 children, ages 22, 20, 17 and 14. According to Danraj, they lit diyas to celebrate Diwali around 18 hours and were gathered in the bottom flat with other family members. He stated that no one was in the upper flat of the house and no diyas were placed there, but it was while his grandchildren were playing in the yard that he heard them screaming. Get the full details in today's Kaieteur News. And of course, now we close things off with the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News, dedicated to being blunt. Time for a fresh start. It is time to move on. Guyana must prepare itself to face the steep challenges that are ahead. The PPPC government and the APNU-AFC opposition must all close ranks and hold one head. Exploitative foreigners that are getting us are the real enemies, not each other, not the supporters of this side or the other. It is time for a fresh start, and renegotiation of the high seas piracy, that is 2016 oil contract, must be the sole priority, the foremost vision. Both government and opposition must demonstrate that they are up to the task. Cease quarreling, get moving. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.